when the regulations started to appear, the first thing was our workers became concerned that they were going to be pulled over, and because it was kind of like a shelter in place. And as an agricultural business, that was right around the time we were doing a lot of planting. I had a lot of work to get going. So I remember, I worked with the county to provide essential worker letters. They gave me like the information I needed and supplied that to our workers. So, and probably as much as what the regulations said, there was just the concern of, what should we do and how should we do it, and how can we make our members and customers feel safe and our workers feel safe. And we're kind of looking to the CDC for recommendations, but it wasn't so much about the regulations to me as it was just to achieve that sense of security. Because we were allowed to open, we were all those things, but we weren't sure how we were to operate, so a lot of it was just using the regulations.
Right.
For our CSA model, which is that's kind of our cooperative where people are showing up every week to pick up their share. Our trademark was that we would set up like a market, and everyone would pick their own, and it was a very social, very communal kind of model.
Mm-hmm.
And for us to accommodate all our CSA members and for ourselves also to be safe, we thought we needed to create a format where people could indicate their choices and their wishes for what they wanted in their shares, and then we would figure out a way to pack it and distribute, either delivering it to their home,
Mm-hmm.
or having them pull up and do like a drive without getting out of their cars. So it took a lot of logistics and a lot of kind of brainstorming and figuring it out. It was very different than what we were used to.
Yeah.
It went way up.
Yeah.
First, our direct to consumer kind of sales, our stands, we were only able to operate, and maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, but 2 of our sites we weren't renewed.
Mm-hmm.
And that had to do with restrictions from COVID, at least for one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we were down to 2 locations from 4 locations the year before. But somehow the business, because we were able to implement online ordering and curbside pickup and delivery, also just for the simple fact that we were an outdoor market at a time where the supermarket shelves were being picked clean, and
Right.
I think restaurants and like hospitality industry were really hit, hard. And and I think people were at home and they were cooking and needed food. So I think grocery places were kind of probably felt a bit of a bump. And starting with like last April through May, we had so many new people join our like CSA program. I think there was that sense of like, if you could secure your supply, and I think that's what a lot of people were doing. Like, okay, I'm going to put the money up front so that I can guarantee a steady supply of food and essentials.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Yes, we had 2 things.
Okay.
One is we were granted a PPP loan,
Mm-hmm.
and that was to help basically with payroll. At the time when we were applying, especially, we didn't know how we were going to operate. Like, I really didn't know how the stands were going to go. In the end, we ended up hiring more people and increasing wages and things. So it definitely helped cover the increased costs. And then we received a small grant from Montgomery County that was just kind of meant to help towards, you know, purchasing masks and hand sanitizers and all those things that we needed that were not during a typical year we wouldn't need, but specifically for last year in order to operate. So, you know, a lot of the farms, you know, and a lot of the businesses in the agricultural business are dependent on these migrant workers. We're not, what is it, the H-2V program or whatever that, you know, temporary seasonal worker permits are. A lot of the farms we work with, that's what they, you know, they bank on it. That's their labor. So that was almost impossible to secure last year. So there was a lot of farms very short in labor, and they had to make difficult decisions of, you know, okay, if this is my workforce, what am I going to be able to manage this year? So they didn't plant as much as they would have during a given year. And that really drove up costs. So we found, like, it was interesting last year that the supply was less. The demand was up for like retail grocers, but it was dropped off from restaurants. So it was a lot of different moving pieces last year. I mean, we saw prices that we've never seen. Like corn would usually sell for $3 a dozen, and it was selling for $15 a dozen. So there was like crazy price jumps on certain things. Later on in the season, things seemed to stabilize, and it became a bit more normal, maybe a little more increased. But there was definitely some, you know, there was a lot of stress added to farms that couldn't find labor, and they had to.
I shut down for about 6 weeks because I wasn't really sure how to interpret, you know, how that went. And as it turned out, farms were essential, so we did come back to work. I did lay off my crew, and then they were called back to work. And I had one fellow that did not come back to work because he thought it was too soon. Even though he wasn't going to meet the general public, he was going to be on the farm, spread out. So didn't want to be unsafe, but you know, like it took me like 6 weeks to kind of figure out where everything was going. I had one farmer's market that they initially didn't want me back, and then it was going to be Mother's Day. Flowers are pretty important for Mother's Day, and so they said, yeah, we'll figure it out. So come, and had a booming day, and you know, I've been going ever since. We do some markets in the district, and the restrictions were much stronger there. Everything had to be behind police tape. Nobody could touch anything. And I still think we're opening up this week at Columbia Heights, and it's still going to be a lot of that.
Do you have your own farm with the flowers?
I do have my own farm. Okay, sounds good. I had a picture somewhere.
Oh, wow.
This is my farm. And then my son joined our business, so this is 2 acres, and he has 5 acres. And the thing, my supply shortage was employees, because even though they weren't working, the work still had to go on, or else I wouldn't have flowers later in the season. So my husband and I did a lot of work. It's really a global industry,
Right.
even though we're a local farm. Some of the assistance we got was in the form of grants. So I got a paycheck protection loan. I got a cash grant from the state, the county, and I got a Corona Food Assistance Program grant because I opened that up to cut flowers. But surprisingly, yes.
Okay.
I honestly am dumbfounded by the amount of money they threw at farmers, but we have put every piece of it to good use. That being said, I feel bad for a lot of other industries, restaurants,
Right.
you know, that maybe didn't get that kind of assistance. Be in good standing, pay your taxes, have insurance on your employees, you know.
Yeah.
And then when these opportunities come along, then you can apply. They need to disperse their money. That's their job.